My name is Nick, and I'm one of the senior data analysts for Best Postcards. So what we do for you is we create a mailing list. We analyze who your client should be and who we should be mailing to based on whatever budget you may have. And then from there, we get a mailing area that is agreed upon and decided. And we do a couple sets of mailings over, say, 2, 3, 4 months. And then after you get jobs, we will then take all of the addresses that you got new jobs at, and we will compare who we mailed to and who we didn't mail to. And we can physically match the address that a new client or a new job was done at to the prospect area that we mailed to. And what we'll do is we will look at that completion date as when the job was done. So we'll compare that to where and when we mailed. So what that enables us to do is we can determine whether or not someone came from the first month's mailing, the second month's mailing, the third month's mailing, and then we can remove them from the next month after that to make sure that we're only accounting for them one time in the matchback. What we are doing with that is we are making sure that when we match an address back to a certain mailing, in the following month's mailing, we're not going to match that address again. So if somebody becomes a client one month, the following month, they will be removed from the prospect list, and they'll be mailed as a client instead. We also compare the revenue of the jobs to the mailing that we send out. So we can give them an idea of a return on investment based off of the different types of mailings. So the main types of mailings that we provide are prospect lists, which are to gain new clients, obviously. A client list, which is client retention, to keep everyone that is already a client staying with you. And then we do a radius mailer. And the radius is if you've done an install in the area, we mail 150 households around that address, and we tell them that we're working in the area and that we can service your household just as we're doing in your neighbor. So as far as these three, the reason why I mentioned those is because a normal client will do a breakdown of a prospect mailing, a client mailing, and they usually speckle in some radius mailings as they get going. Because they do 3 different mailings, we want to be able to attribute all new jobs or new clients back to each one of those mailings, whatever it might be. So if they got a new job, we want to be able to tell you whether it came from prospect or whether it came from radius or whether it came from a client list. We can also do that based on the month. Now that I gave you a brief overview of what we would do for the data, how we would match it back, I'm going to go and explain this sample report that I have on the screen and give you an idea of the sort of reporting that we'll provide after we do mailings. This report here is about a year's information, but it doesn't have to be this much. When we're creating this matchback, the first list that we obtain is a list of all your installs or all jobs or services with a transaction amount to it. And when we get that list, it usually comes from a number of different CRM sources. One of the most common would be ServiceTitan, and we use that with probably about 90% of our clients. So 90% of the lists that we pull are pulled out of ServiceTitan, and normally we get level 0 access, so we can only download reports. All we need access to is the address, city, state, and zip, and then the date and the revenue that was attributed to that job. Now, like I said, 90% of our stuff comes out of a ServiceTitan, but we do have a couple other smaller CRM sources, one of those being Field Edge. Now, once we have that data, then we run the matchback. We use a program called Alteryx that's a fantastic visual programming. We built a workflow in there using a bunch of different steps that we wanted to run through, which in this case would be the mailing list that we actually sent out and the client list that we received out of ServiceTitan or directly from you. We will then take those inputs and we'll run them through our workflow, which runs a set of steps, which looks at the dates to make sure that we can put all the dates in order. It looks at the total revenue to make sure that they're all above 0, so we're not going to count somebody who was maybe just called as a service or as a lead. We'll also make sure that we remove anybody who might have already been a client. So the matchback will match back to the type of mailing that they received. So it breaks it down by revenue, by the dates, and then by what we actually mailed and the dates that we mailed it. And then it will compare those dates to what we received, and then we'll match the addresses back from there.